And it's a real honor for me to be here, joining this International Women's Day with all of the great leaders in this platform. So a little bit about myself. Growing up in Pakistan, I have seen lots of misery, lots of pain because of the lack of proper health infrastructure. And that's why I wanted to be a physician. Past few years, my Rohingya refugee work has kind of pushed me to speak out for them, speak out for the women and other injustices that are happening around the globe. This moment of technological changes has not transformed our humanity into something better. Essentially, we are the same, although we pretend to be more dignified. If we, I was just preparing for another talk for the students, and I looked for US military budget of last year. It was $726 billion for 1 year. And each year, previous years, it was more than that. So the money we spend on improving humanity is a drop in the bucket compared to how much we spend trying to kill each other or making Lockheed Martin rich, the weapon guy. But what's more tragic in these is that in the past 1 year in this pandemic, our priorities did not change. Constantly, governments have favored their own political interest over the common good, consistently ignoring scientists and medical experts, even though this pandemic is a textbook example of a problem that only science can solve. And this was evident when the crisis first occurred, as the Chinese government suppressed the severity of the initial outbreak, costing the rest of the world precious time and allowing the virus to spread all over the globe. And we again saw with the Trump administration's anti-science rhetoric, which constantly put a desire to appease their base and business interest over public safety and science, even at the cost of their own citizens. As a global community, we really need to get it together if we want to be ready to face problems of this magnitude again. So none of my talks are complete without mentioning Rohingya. I don't know how many of you know about the Rohingya refugees. They are indigenous people of Myanmar who have been persecuted in their own land for half a century. And now 1 million of them are sitting in refugee camps inside Bangladesh, which is a very poor country to feed its own citizens. So I have worked in those refugee camps and I have seen what it looks like when people are driven to desperation. We will likely start seeing many more humanitarian catastrophes in the upcoming years if we do not find a way to mitigate and stop them. Our institutions will be overwhelmed.
পুরা দে ঘর পুরা দে মানুষ আরে মানুষ জীবনী করে আলাদা আসছিল
The type of violence that these people have gone through is really exceptional, is really extraordinary, and the extent of the trauma that I have observed is one that, as I have already said, will probably be the most difficult thing to heal, even more than the physical wounds that many of them indeed carry.
And
and the conditions on the ground really shocked me. Just imagine like 1 million people, traumatized, sick, injured people living in those flimsy bamboo tents. They have nothing. In those refugee camps, and it's the largest refugee camp of the world right now, the Rohingya refugee camp in Bangladesh, international organizations say that some of the Bangladeshi border guards, military and police officials facilitate trafficking of Rohingya women, including accepting bribes from traffickers to gain access to the camps. I want to share like a story of one of my patients who came to the camps.
The military killed 3 of my family members. I lost my father-in-law, my husband, and my husband's younger brother. The military was firing bullets at the people, and they were throwing dirty water back at the soldiers. There was blood and guts everywhere. The military dragged all of the women in a room. That's when they took my husband and my baby. They did what they wanted with us. They raped us. We were locked in the room so we couldn't escape. They killed everyone else in the village, and then they left. I spend all day thinking that I have nothing anymore. I don't have any desires, just the desire to die.
So Smita, this beautiful 20-year-old woman, she told me that army soldiers, when they came to her village, they separated men and women. And she remembered clutching her husband's arm, but then she was struck and was thrown at the wall. Her husband was carrying their 6-month-old infant at that time when the army took him. And one woman found 2 days later that baby barely alive in a ditch covered in the blood in a really poor condition near the dead body of his father. So Samida, along with many other women of the village, were blindfolded and led to a barn. All the women were stripped and gang raped, including Samida. So she came to Bangladesh with her brother. After getting to Bangladesh, she found out that she was pregnant. She still doesn't know if the father is her husband or one of the many soldiers who raped her. So Samida's story is a very typical example of the women, what we see when we go in those camps to provide medical care. All those women, they have gone through something very similar as Samida. Mothers were raped in front of their young children who were severely injured and some instances killed. Myanmar used rape as a weapon of war. Back in 2017, when I went to the camp first time, there were about 80,000 women pregnant because of the mass rape. Some of them tried to abort so when they got to Bangladesh camps, they found out that they're pregnant. And some of them tried to abort themselves because they were ashamed. So they were sticking unsterilized needles and sticks in themselves and going to the medical centers a few days later with really nasty, life-threatening infections. So when I go to these camps, it's very difficult to provide medical care as these people suffer in so many different ways. And most 70% of these Rohingya refugees are women and children because they kill their men and boys, like it's part of genocide. So when I met Samida first time, and when I meet many other women like Samida, so I thought that these women are human beings like you and all of you guys, that all the women who are sitting here, and me. So they have the same organs, same heart that feels the pain of injustice. There are really no words how disgusting a crime of this scale is. So for the very first time when I went to these camps, and I was shocked and horrified as a woman, as a doctor, especially as a mother. I can talk about the Rohingya refugees all day long, but I will just quickly switch my topic to Uyghurs of China. So I encourage all of you guys just to Google Uyghurs of China and concentration camps, and you will read tons of things because due to the time, I'm limited in my time. I just want to give a brief message about them. So as per US intelligence agencies, there are about 3 million people in concentration camps inside China. and where their organs are being harvested, their organs have been taken out. And there are tons of reports that how these organs are being taken, either by shooting them on the right side of the chest, on one of their limbs, to keep them alive. As research showed that organs are more viable if they are like more good if they are taken from an alive person. So while men are in the concentration camps, their wives are forced to sleep with Han Chinese men in the same beds in their own homes. So basically being raped. There are about total population of Uyghurs in China is about 16 million. So it's not like a small number of people. And their children have been sent to state-run orphanages. So as a doctor, I heard about this Uyghurs 2 years ago when I was coming out of the hall in Toronto after one of the speaking event. And there was one Chinese couple standing outside the hall waiting for me. So they said that, Dr. Alvi, you're doing so much for Rohingya. What about us? And I had no clue, to be very honest, until that time, what's going on in that part of the world. So then, but I said that, no, I'm too swamped. And, I'm a physician and I have practice and I'm working for the Rohingya and I'm traveling. I don't have time to get involved. But I was curious. And that curiosity actually led me to get involved more when I found out that what horrific crimes, are being committed inside China. So in Alberta, the province where I practice, so we started this campaign. So Alberta Medical Association, they moved the motion. So I presented, spoke to all the doctors, and the doctors were horrified and they supported me. So we are sending letters to the universities that the forced organ harvesting that's been going on in these camps and all over the world. It's illegal. We should not support them. And there are a couple of other motions, and we are talking with Canadian Medical Association, and I'm working with some other doctors across the globe for this cause. So as speakers before me, she said that women are on the front line. And in our society, I think we need to do a better job of supporting those women who are on the front line. We need to end that gender wage gap. We need more women and diverse people as a part of decision-making process. And we need to support healthcare and frontline workers instead of cutting tens of thousands of healthcare jobs like we did in Alberta, where I live. We should invest more to handle a crisis such as this one. And there's data show that large numbers of female immigrants and refugees inside Canada, they work in the healthcare, and which carries a greater risk of contracting COVID-19. So how can we support, how we can work towards a gender equal world? I think we should address the structural barrier that deny women due to their own socioeconomic rights and restrict their economic and social and political opportunities and undermine their resilience to all forms of jobs. And we should address women's disproportionate burden of unpaid care work, including by engaging men in care work, ensuring women's equal rights to property, credit, land, and natural resources. And we should have decent work, and we should give them equal access to basic services, including health services. So we need more women in the leadership positions, in politics, in healthcare. We need more women at the table, period. We should address the reasons why more women are not in the leadership roles. So making a difference. As a physician, I choose to challenge everyone who is listening. Think about those brave women on the front line of this pandemic, and many who are women of color who have sacrificed so much and have gotten so little in return. There remains to be a gender pay gap between men and women, as I said earlier, and it's within every medical specialty in Canada. And I challenge all of you guys, all of us, to close this gap and raise awareness for gender inequality in this world and in our society. If any questions, you guys can always ask me, reach to me by my website, humanityauxilium.com, email me. That's what I do after my day job for the last 3 years.